I left my water somewhere else. Well, we'll just hope that I don't need to drink water suddenly. I was preoccupied doing last minute things for this live stream today about Climathon Wrapped. And I'm going to share with you why I was preoccupied. I had to take this picture. Look at that. So that is what is behind the camera. The cuteness is unbearable. It must not go unnoticed. Okay. Now that we've all said hi to Bean, hello, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. Like I said, it's going to be about Climathon, which is a year-long readathon run by Tasman over at the channel Tasmetu, who is down in the description. And if you're new here, Climathon is a readathon about the climate crisis. So we learn about science, we learn about policy, we learn about non-human life, we learn about advocacy, we read stories of hope and stories of revolution. And there's a grid that Tasman made up that is about all of these things. And you can participate in the readathon at any time in the year, including now, by reading for any of these prompts. And if you really want to go gangbusters, you can try to read them all. So we're going to wrap up. I have 20 reads and I am on my 21st read for this readathon. So I loved it, y'all. And if that is your thing, please share about the readathon because it will be continuing, and drop your favorite reads or subscribe to the channel because I will definitely continue talking about this subject. It is near and dear to my heart because it is near and dear to our survival as a species. There we go. So hello and good morning for me, everybody. Good evening, some of you out there. And now that I got the cute cat out of the way, let me return to my outline. I have a pinned question in the chat, which is looking forward. So I'm going to be talking about the 21 reads, mostly the 4 and 5 stars today that I read this year, 2025, for my Climathon Wrapped. But I also was interested to see, looking forward, what is something you might want to read? Because I came up with a really interesting idea that I'm going to have to do some research on. And I'll share that with you when we go over all your answers in the chat. But I will just put that up so people can digest it if they're not in the current chat stream live. And then say hello to the chat. Hi, Eva. Good morning. Hi, Cat Paw, here on a phone. Yes, hello. Julie, hello. Happy to be here. I am happy you are here as well. Okay, so I'm going to star this. I'm going to try to keep all the answers in one spot. And I'm going to share the screen later. So just going to set up for that later. But I thought I would just sort of ground the Climathon wrap up with what is the purpose of a readathon, right? In case you haven't really participated in one before and you just feel a little daunted or intimidated, my motivation behind participating in a readathon. Now, I looked into this actually a little bit beforehand. Readathons, kind of like walkathons, started out as fundraisers. People would have a read as much as you can in a short amount of time, like a day, and it would be a fundraiser for a certain charity cause. I remember as a kid doing a walkathon, walking as many laps as we could around our school, and that was to raise money for, I think, sports for the school or programs. And so that's how it started. But we've sort of evolved the concept on Booktube, and I think we're the queens of the themed readathons, because mostly when people do readathons on Booktube, it's for a specific theme, right? Whether that's a month that is also like a nationally designated theme, or whether it is a specific purpose. I know there's a Clear Your Shit readathon going on multiple times, but definitely right now, I think in December. And if you want to know more about readathons, Pages with Paige, the channel runs through every one that's coming up the month before, and there's a whole ton. So Paige does a great job with that if you're curious. But for me, it's focusing on a certain theme and then getting the gratification of sharing the insights about that theme with others in a synchronous manner. And what do I mean by synchronous? Well, lately, asynchronous has been a buzzword in the sort of tech mogul universe, right? Asynchronous means you don't have to do something at the same time as something else. So, for example, podcasts are asynchronous. They record and release, and then you can listen to them whenever it's convenient for you. It's not like we're all tuning into one TV channel at the same time. But readathons reverse that trend because we are all reading books on the same theme at the same time. And then the end of that time period, we go, oh, look, I read this book and it said this thing. What do you think? Well, I read this book and it had a really interesting take that's a little different. And so you have the opportunity to discuss things at once in a synchronous manner. Throwing it back. You know me, I'm throwing it back to the retro. So I like that part of it. And climate, as you know, is a big thing with me. I have done, I tried to do one a month that was my version of focusing on climate, and I called it Truth and Reconciliation for the Climate. Now, I think my playlist with that heading has 9 talks because I got, I think, 6 people to come on and talk about it throughout the year, and I had 3 that I sort of did as roundups on my own thinking. I think that's about where I left it. So didn't get 12 guests, but I think we had a lot of fun talking to people about their own causes and things that were close to their heart, because climate crisis is a huge topic and there are lots of things that tie in with it. And I think one of the most important things that I learned in my reading this year is that Climathon is irretrievably interlinked with all these other issues of social injustice. And so when we're talking about, I don't know, funding priorities, it's really not an either or question. At the local level, it may be, right? At the local level, it may be, do you fund a program for hungry kids in schools, or do you fund a program for, you know, uh, remediating a flood landslide damage in the park? Like, there are hard choices at that level. But when you're talking about the national level or the international level, because we're all affected, they're really linked. And if you want me to link those, um, it's going to be asynchronous, right? It's going to be, well, if you take care of the parks, then you have, um, less trouble in disaster areas because people's properties are damaged, and then you have to dedicate funds later. You also have places for kids to play, and then that helps families, and then their budgets aren't taken up with, like, spending money for childcare as much so they can, like, everything is related. I just want people to start thinking in those sorts of terms, and that was my big takeaway. So, yeah. Cat is here. Glad you survived being calling dibs on your pillows. I know, I know. I didn't take an allergy pill. I'm gonna try taking half a pill every other day. We'll see. I don't know what the formula is, but he's good. I'm good. We're all good. We're here for the live. Thanks, Cat, for checking in. Let's see. So, purpose of a readathon. And you saw the thumbnail. Let me see. How do I want to do this? Do I want to do the screen share? Or do I want to do the thumbnail? Maybe I'll just do the thumbnail. Okay. Nope, I need to do the story graph because I need to click through all my red books that have Climathon as a tag. Okay, 21. And we'll go through and we'll see the rating, so that'll be easy. Although I did take notes. Let me grab my my notebook with the notes. Beep, 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 beep. No. I don't think any of you in the chat had Climathon reads, but correct me if I'm wrong. I am almost done with this notebook. I have one more page. Oh my goodness, this is exciting. I've been going through this for like 3 years. Look at how thick this notebook is. And I turned it around and I'm using the back And I have one more page, the first page I started on. That's kind of exciting. It is, in fact, a Christmas notebook that I got from JC like 4 years ago. So reuse, reduce, and recycle or upcycle, right? That's the lesson. I'll take this down. Whoops, take that down. And yeah, we'll talk about 4-star favorites first. Looking at this. I'll pop it up for everybody on the stage and then put me in the other corner. Put baby in the corner, that's right. And then scroll down. So, okay, I've got my list, right? So this list here is the 20 plus 1 books because I'm working on one. The one I'm going to be working on for in December is Theory of Water, which I shared in the live stream with Gareth and Dave last night, right before I had to zip out. Because family was coming over for dinner. So, and we had BLTs, which were later discussed, which is fun. I had an ALT because vegetarian, but it was very good for everybody. So I'm going to go backwards through the list and talk about 4-star reads first. Is this a 4-star read? Yes. Okay. So I haven't done a wrap up with this one, and I don't want to go into too much detail for all y'all, but Soil and Spirit by Scott Chasky is a recent read. I haven't talked about it yet. I gave it 4 stars, and it satisfied, let's see, the Earth prompt, obviously, with the title like Soil and Spirit, the Revolution or Change prompt, the Activist Author prompt, the Food or Farming prompt, obviously, the Connection prompt, because it was about community, and the Hope and Solutions prompt. He had a lot of really, really cool things. One was going to a conference in China about CSAs, which are community supported agriculture. Now, I know about these through farmers markets where you can buy a share and you have a box every so often through the season, the growing season, and you get to sort of order ahead to help them with expenses for farming and then get like whatever is ripe and ready that week or every other week. And I think it's a lovely idea. I even had a job for a very short time selling subscriptions to these because I believed in the cause, but I wasn't cut out for that job. It was pretty miserable by the end, and then I had to quit. So, but yeah, Soil and Spirit. He had a lot of really interesting things. I would call him a cowboy poet farmer. Maybe not a cowboy for Greg, but definitely a farmer poet because he had a lot of soil experience and growing experience, but also a lot of poetry in this book. So I didn't know what to expect when I picked it up from Libro.fm, but really enjoyed that aspect. And it was a shorter audiobook, so it counts toward my Read What You Own. So yeah, soil, food, farming, all that good stuff. 4 stars, 4 stars. What else do we have here? Salvagia. So this is a climate fiction. Make it a little bigger for everybody. And I may not have the rating on Storygraph yet, but I'm reading from my list where I did a quick and dirty job here. Salvagia by Tim Chawaga. He's an American author, and this was the cli-fi that I started several months ago and just finished this week, so I haven't talked about it yet either. It's about a world where we're underwater. Florida is mainly underwater, and the main character is a diver who's trying to get a big score of salvage so she can buy the boat, which is semi-sentient, which is pretty cool. So there's like a little futuristic elements, but the climate aspect is really just sort of grappling with what our world is going to look like in about 100 years when our landscape is completely changed. And so our economy is going to have to change along with it. Basically, Tim Chawaga paints the picture of people on the fringes trying to scrabble a life together in small communities up against a federal government that's taken over a lot of economic activity and mafia-controlled sections that are sort of gobbling up places and real estate markets where they pop up. It's really not all that distant future, I felt, and the character was very funny, and you really rooted for her and her friends and the shifting alliances, and it was a very clever mystery action book, while also, like, painting the picture of a world under climate change, so really good, 4-star recommend. What is next for 4-star? I have Rising. Okay, so way, way back. This is a January read. I gave it 4.5 actually, and I just remembered 4-star because my memory isn't so great anymore. Dispatches from the New American Shore by Elizabeth Rush. And what I remember about this is that they're nonfiction essays, kind of like a nature memoir. And she's talking about how our policy choices are affecting us already. So if you think that we're all doing projections about how long it will take to get to Salvagia's future. She is actually reporting on the places that are already experiencing this disaster mentality. The one that pops to mind first is going to Louisiana, to parts where especially indigenous and Black communities and mixed race communities are on the low-lying islands, and the islands are already being covered up. So if you wanna talk about economically disadvantaged, hey, they own land, they've held on to the land through thick and thin, through discriminatory practices, and now the land is actually disappearing, and the water and rights are, playing into the hands of oil interests and other players, and, yeah, it's how do you leave the land that you've managed to keep for generations? It's a really hard choice, so people are trying to scrabble through it. And what is the government doing in that case? Like, there's some really interesting personal stories that she covers in that one. But she goes through other places too. She goes to, wetlands in New England, is another one I remember, and I think a place in California might be nearby, or that may be me remembering a different book. So again, I read this in January of 2025, you can see, so, ooh, I'll have to go into my notes to get more specifics, but really good, 4.5 stars, recommend. Let's see, Seed Keeper is another 4.75, so I just remembered 4 because I can't remember that far back. January 5th, 2025. You can see my tags here. Seed Keeper by Diane Wilson. I tagged it as getting it from Broadway Books as a new book. Climathon. It was a Herkyad read, but didn't end up panning out because I failed Herkyad. Indigathon, because it's written by an Indigenous author. And Native Lady Book Warrior was the one who recommended it to me. That's how I track who recommends books. So there you've got a lot of information just looking at Storygraph, where I bought it, who recommended it to me, what I could apply it to for readathons. Um, and yeah, Seed Keeper is about a few different generations, and someone in the present timeline who is struggling with um, keeping the legacy of a farm, which she got through marriage, connecting with family who she didn't know because she ran away or was taken away. That's what it was. Um, I think under the age of 10, and then trying to stay out of the foster care system as an Indigenous person. And then her own children, her child, I think, is struggling with the white sort of white collar world versus the land and what she's achieved. So there's all these different things, and it's very elegantly done to pull these threads together in a coherent story with multiple timelines and narrators. So I really, really liked it. And that's what I remember a year later. So highly recommend. Um, oh, okay. I've got one more 4-star, but I see if there we go. The Draw of the Sea. So this is a book that I picked up when I was in Canada in September. The Draw of the Sea is by Will Menmuir. I don't have a tissue nearby. This is a nonfiction collection of essays. I didn't go into the prompts for the other one, but this is obviously, looking at the cover, going to satisfy the water prompt, specifically because Men Muir talks about his and other people's in his life life's engagement with the sea. So I think he lives in Cornwall, but he talks about other places in parts of the essays. It's all different ways that we think about how we engage. He's a surfer, so a lot of it involves his relationship being on the water, surfing at different points, at different times for different reasons. And that's really neat. He also talks about tide pools and his children going out to see what's there. This is also where I learned about the great Lego ship. I think I may have heard about it somewhere else, but it mentioned it again here. The 1990s, I think, had a ship, a container ship, lose a container full of Legos, and people have been collecting them on beaches throughout Europe and Canada for 30 years, 40 years now. So like looking at the relationship over time, I think he goes into some past things where people had different relationships, like the smugglers in Cornwall, and sort of things like that. So the draw of the sea is about our calling back to the sea as humans. So I really like his tone, his personal, his emotional journey. Really, really good. So highly recommend. These are all my recommends. These are all my favorites. And of course, I forgot. No, I didn't. I still have the banner up. Good. Okay. I'm keeping track here. And that is all the 4-star recommendations. So I can pause and catch up with chat and pause this for a minute so that I'm bigger and I could see your comments. Let's see. Julie, Kat, Gareth is here. Ooh, have you read the older J.G. Ballard cli-fi? I have not. I think it's the covers that scare me away. How is Ballard on gender portrayal? Give us a look, because I know you have a lot of his oeuvre and can tell us, like, is it outdated? Is it really going to annoy me as I go through? Or is he ahead of his time? I think he's from the 70s or 60s, right? Erin is here. Hello. I am reading a climate-related fantasy book at the moment. I might have mentioned it before, but it's fun. Perilous Times by Thomas D. Lee. And that doesn't ring a bell, so I will definitely look that up. And awesome. Do you think you'll finish it before the end of the year? You've got about 25 days, 26 days. Yeah. Fantasy. Oh, climate-related fantasy. I definitely want to look that up because I think most of the cli-fi is dystopian that I've picked up. So yeah, I'd be curious about this one. I'm going to star Gareth's response so that I can cover all the answers together. Erin says, I liked The Drowned World. J.G. Ballard is, I think that's his most famous one. Yeah, a lot of people like those Ballard classics. Hello, Alan. Good evening. I need to read The Word for World is Forest, which is Ursula K. Le Guin, I believe. It wasn't one of my favorite Le Guins, but want to try it again. Yeah, I remember loving the title and thinking that I would really love it, and then maybe not buying it because I looked into someone's blurb about it and I was like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. It's a sci-fi take, and Ursula K. Le Guin is really good at doing a what if and then following it up with a whole planned out world, like an amazing thought experiment. But I haven't tried Left Hand of Darkness. So yeah, there's a lot of Le Guin for me to mine. Gareth says that was my first Le Guin, so very close to my heart. I was hooked. Really? The Word for World is Forest was your first? That's unusual. I think it's a lesser known work of hers. That's pretty cool. And you were hooked. Well, that speaks well for it. So yeah, maybe give it another chance, Erin. Very cool. Let's see. 5-star reads. Are we ready for 5-star reads? We'll continue here. And I've got a banner for that. No, I don't want a timer, StreamYard. It's doing all these weird things and on default. I don't like it. Okay, so we're gonna go chronologically backwards. So my first one here of this year's Climathon reads that are 5 stars is one of my most recent reads. It's What Water Holds by Tella Adson. 5 stars. All right, and this one applies to almost all of the prompts. 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So What Water Holds is a collection of essays. It was published in written form in 2023, and it was put out in audio form in 2025. So that's how I got it with Libro.fm as a ALC. And the reason I was drawn to this, I wouldn't normally be drawn to a fisherman's memoir, but there's a special relationship here because some of you may remember I read Laura Messersmith-Glavin's book. It was a collection of essays, and she is a fisher poet. Now, she's a friend. I used to be in the writing group with Laura, and so I know she writes beautifully. Like, you don't even need to know what she's writing about, and her audio delivery of the book will just hook you to have the fisherman's metaphor. But she goes to this conference, and I think it's every February on the Oregon coast, called Fisher Poets. And it's people who are or have been in the fishing industry from Alaska to Oregon. And it's a very specific experience, and they share poetry or memoir or fiction, what have you, from that community's perspective. And so when I saw Tella Adson was part of Fisher Poets, I thought, oh, well, maybe it'll be like Laura's in some way, and I can compare and sort of give it context. And it was. So Tella is a woman who grew up with fishermen parents. They divorced. She became a deckhand. And then at the time of this writing, she was with a partner on their own boat, just like her parents were. And so she's got a really long perspective of being a person on the ocean. She starts off with, and I haven't gone through it yet. I haven't done it in a wrap up because it's too recent. So I don't want to get too specific, but she covers non-human life because she's really in gratitude for the salmon that they fish for in Alaska. All the different types, because she talks about king salmon as well as coho salmon. And you just get the feeling that she knows what she's talking about. She's lived through this many decades. And so you have faith that what she's saying is truth, which I appreciate. You've got living on the water. She talks about her relationship with the ocean. You've got the outside setting. It's on the ocean. There's storms. She talks about like really getting shaken up by a storm. You've got revolution and change. The second to the last essay, I believe, is one of my favorites when she's talking about the different interests competing and the lawsuit coming from Washington State on a technicality to stop the troller fleet. So if you've been in my journey for the past year, you know I went vegetarian, but it's pescatarian, I guess. I should call myself a pescatarian because I will eat fish, but I'm very picky about the fish. I try to eat sustainable fish, sustainably caught fish. And the small troller fleet of Alaska, of which Tella is a part, catches fish by line, meaning one fish, one line at a time, not scooping up from the bottom of the ocean, destroying the ocean floor, trawling. So trolling is by line. Trawling is the scoop of the ocean floor. So they're very different, even though they sound very similar. And trolling is also what bad people do on the internet. So just so we're clear, there's lots of meanings for this word that we should all get straight. So yeah, the revolution and change essay that I liked most was about big interest in Seattle going after fish in this like small area of Alaska. And we didn't know the outcome at the time, and I haven't looked it up yet, but the policy attention is what I really appreciate. So she's a fisherman. She loves being on the water. She's careful about the salmon that she catches with her partner, but also she pays attention to the big picture and how all of these are so carefully calibrated. And, every interest matters, and that's part of being part of the community. So I just like really liked how she tied it together so well. So well. Really good. Um, she's also an activist author. She's also into food and farming because salmon is food. 10 is connection because that essay that I mentioned, and not a different continent. Okay, so yeah, those are all the prompts. But 5-star read may be hard to get hold of. If Ben is going to watch this later, that may be a really hard one to find an ebook from a library, but maybe Finland has it. You never know. So 5-star reads. The next one is going to be The Great Derangement, which I haven't done a standalone book review for, but I may do. This is by Amitav Ghosh, and you may know Amitav Ghosh's name from his fiction. Very popular fiction author. I haven't read any of their fiction before, but what he does in this, Climate Change and the Unthinkable, is really interesting. And I was a little afraid at the beginning it would be too theoretical, but I took it slowly and it came out well. It came out 5 stars, right? Amitav Ghosh talks about how it's hard to comprehend climate change because it's a hyper object. It's something that's so vast and intricate and linked with everything, as I said, that it's hard to understand how we can affect it and how to understand how it came about and like all these things. But he teases out threads. Excuse me. I love you, babe. But my nose is running. He teases out threads that talk about our perception of climate change. So it's a very meta book. It's very theoretical, but it's also personal. He gets into his family in India, how Bombay is going to be affected, how he thought about, do I move my mom out of the family home because she's in a vulnerable area? But like, what do I say? Mom, you're 80 and like you're in a very vulnerable area. So we should sell this house and buy somewhere else. And she's just going to look at him like, well, what are you talking about? He finally screws up the courage to mention it. And she's like, what are you talking about? So it's hard to have these conversations because the unthinkable needs to be talked about. And that's part of what Climathon is about, is really engaging with these unthinkable consequences of our actions. It may be hard because they'll have this percent chance that will happen, this percent chance that will happen. And it is hard to hold in your head, but I think talking about it will help us um, make links of community and links of, well, if I am pushed out or if I need help, like who can I turn to? Those conversations should be occurring right now. And I think this type of book, uh, while it takes a little more effort to understand and take in, will help us get there and have the courage to talk about it, which I thought was really valuable. So 5-star book. Now I need to read some of his fiction because he does introduce climatic elements. Um, and again, I want to talk more in depth about his approach um, in a standalone book review. So look out for that. If not in December, maybe in January. 5-star books. 5-star books, y'all. Great Derangement. Field Guide. Yeah, the next one I have talked about. So now we're clear of the they're not wrapped up yet. Field Guide to Climate Anxiety: How to Keep Your Cool on a Warming Planet by Sarah Jaquette Ray. And this is what I was looking for earlier in the year. So I read this in October, but I read a Tori Tsui book, which I have listed there on the tags. And it was not really satisfying, but she did point me to other books. And so she recommended in her book this book, which is what I really wanted to read, which is great. So this is my 5-star recommendation. And this book also has lots of references to other books. So Field Guide to Climate Anxiety. What I was looking for is affirmation that our response to climate change and climate crisis is reasonable, right? We are all going through a really unthinkable situation. And so we're reacting to it in different ways. And like affirmation that that is normal, that that is reasonable, that it's a big deal. We should be talking about it and addressing it. And then also like different aspects of responding, making resilient change in our communities and stuff like that. So 5-star read, highly recommend. It's short, it's sweet, it's Yeah, recommended for everybody. I have a lot of 5-star reads, so I should probably check in with the chat so that I know what they're talking about. Oh, I didn't put up the banner. No, I did, and I clicked on the timer. There we go. Sorry, everybody. Catching up here, stepping around StreamYard's landmines. No, don't. Okay, I did put it up, and it was with a timer. There, stay up. Stop futzing with me. Okay, here's where we left off. Gareth said, "It was a fluke. I think I just picked it up first, then I immediately read 4 others." Le Guin? Oh my gosh, okay. Catpaw says, "I bought The Forest Le Guin, but couldn't get into it. Do I need to give it another shot?" Yeah, I don't know. It's fiction, right? It's not exactly what I was expecting, and so that's why I didn't buy it. But what do you guys think? Gareth says, "It doesn't seem to be that popular, so I may be peculiar in liking it or loving it." Oh, yeah. Oh, Catpaw loved The Dispossessed. That's another thought experiment that I hear she did really well, and I haven't read it yet. I need to. Hi, Leslie, listening while at work. Thanks for being here. Erin says Marilyn Robinson wrote a book about nuclear pollution at Sellafield. Is that in the UK? I'd like to read that. I read and loved all her fiction. Interesting. Oh, so maybe that would be another Climathon read. I'm going to star that to talk about during the answers period. Yeah, that's a good recommendation. Okay, I'm going to continue with my 5 stars here since we're all caught up. Sustaining Spirit. And I'm gonna show both of these because I think I liked one more than the other. Yeah, I gave this 5-star and the other 4.5, but I'll talk about Naomi Ortiz as a whole. So, Sustaining Spirit, Self-Care for Social Justice. Now, Naomi Ortiz is the author, and she is a Latinx and disabled community activist. So, in both of her books, this one and Rituals for Climate Change, she's highlighting her experience as an environmental justice activist and a disability justice activist. So, you get both by reading these. Rituals for Climate Change is more of a poetry book. I think there was less prose and more poetry sort of formatted, but Sustaining Spirit is more of a prose book where she talks about some of her experiences and says, I would have really liked this, or I tried to do this. And so it's very clear examples of failures where things have not worked out, and then thinking through what it would take to make plans to include the disability community in climate planning. And so it's one of these intersectional books that I found really valuable, but also Sustaining Spirit was really relatable for me. It was very personal and emotional, and that sort of appeal gets me more than statistics and graphs. And I'm sorry if you like the graphs and spreadsheets, but I'm not that kind of person. So I'm always gonna like feel and resonate and remember better the ones where people said, this is how I felt, and this is how we can do it better to make people feel more included. So that's just my experience. And 5-star read, short, sweet, really great. I think everyone, if they can find it, I know Cat Paw had trouble finding it anywhere. So I'm sorry if it's like hard to find, but keep it on your wish list, and maybe like there some universe will shift and it'll be available somewhere. That's the best I could do. But yeah, Naomi Ortiz, really great. I discovered her work. 5-star. Why is it going away? I'm really ticked that it keeps going away. Stop making it a timer. How do I stop making it a timer? Now it's like always a timed banner. This is timer off, save. There we go. Sorry, guys. I just had to be really annoyed at the logistics for a second. Okay, back to 5-star reads. The next one, I did do a standalone review of. Okay, so here's the deal. The Great Disruption, Why the Climate Crisis Will Bring on the End of Shopping. We just had Black Friday, so it did not. And the Birth of a New World. Mm, we might be in the messy middle of that. It's by Paul Gilding, and I gave it 5 stars because while it hasn't yet come to pass, so his vision of the apocalypse is 15 years late, and so you may mark it down for that. But why I still gave it 5 stars is that he is really outlining all the different ways that there are cracks in the pillars of all of our economies in the world, right? So he's an Australian and he wrote this. And I tried to look him up to see if he's written anything since then. He's on LinkedIn and I tried to like see a blog post on LinkedIn, but it's very anodyne. It's nothing about the topic of the book. And so I don't know if I can count him as an activist author because he's fallen off the stage for 15 years. So I'm a little sketched out about that. But this book was a really good foundation for where all the cracks are. And especially if you want revolution and change and want to keep poking at those cracks to make them bigger, I thought this was a really good roadmap. So 5 stars, really good experience, even though some of it I was laughing at, like the predictions. Yeah. And then we already know we all love All the Water in the World, but in case you didn't see this cover yet, by Erin Kafal, the audio was really good. The book was fantastic. Highly recommend. 5-star read. Of course, I gave it 4.5 stars here, but apparently things mature on the shelf sometimes. And looking back, I want to include this as a 5-star recommendation. It is dystopic cli-fi written in a very thriller style. So we start out with a party of found family, some related, some not, on the top of the Natural History Museum in New York City after a lot of New York City has been inundated and services are just out, right? So people are uh, each out for his own, whatever that phrase is, and it's a very dangerous world, and so people have taken very heavy precautions to protect themselves and only trust those that they know. So this protagonist has like a sixth sense about water, and they know that the big storm, the next big superstorm is coming that is going to wash out even their precautions and shelter. And so they take this journey to get ahead of it and get out of the city where they're more in danger. And the story is about whether they find, whether they all make it to the promised land, basically. Oh, it was so good, and it was so rewarding and exciting and well-paced and, like, really revealing characters where we recognize different populations. Really, really good, and Kat Podjoy is being this, it's so good. So, if you can find this one in written or ebook or audio, highly recommend trying this for your next read, and then you could be included in Climathon. All right, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. Oh, um, this is an old one. Let's see if I can find it. No, it's not in here, maybe. Dang it, dang it. Okay, it's on the thumbnail. So I'll just pause this for a second. It's on the thumbnail. You'll see one by Jekka McVicker. I love saying her name. It's called Herbs Pure and Simple, and it was available as an audiobook. But it's an interesting format because what it is a bunch of um, basically short podcasts, maybe like 10, 15 minutes that they produce over a long time, several years. And Jekka McVicker is known as a gardener, an herb gardener in particular. She talks a little bit about her family life, her growing up life, her married life, her running around doing things life. But the main focus of the series is that she travels to meet another gardener who has a fantastic garden. They take a little tour, they show what they're specializing in and where they're situated and the history of the garden, which is fascinating in some aspects. And then they pick a few things and they bring it into like the little kitchen that they have. And you hear them say, oh, you can prepare lavender this way, or you can prepare a tea from this herb in the garden, or we're going to walk down the lane behind their house and just pick some of the weeds. And what can we do with those? We can make them into a pie. We can make them with this. And so I loved the multi-stage nature of these little produced segments for some BBC radio thing. Not being in that market, I wouldn't have access to it. But in this book, they string them together and we get to hear about a lot of cool herbs from the UK and their uses for medicinal, for just flavorful dishes, etc. And I just really liked that. So Jekka McVicker, never stop saying that name. Herbs, Pure and Simple was a really fun and educational audiobook I listened to. And then my last 5-star that should be on here, down at the bottom, is my first read. Why is it not here? Okay. There we go. I don't know why I don't have the Climathon tag. I keep thinking I did them and I caught it and I put it in and then it doesn't show up. It's annoying. Is one of my first reads of the year, January 4th, 2025, 5-star read. This is a memoir by Alexandra Morton called Not on My Watch: How a Renegade Whale Biologist Took on Governments and Industry to Save Wild Salmon. So just like I listened to a fisher poet, so fisherman in Alaska, who's trying to do the best thing for the salmon, Alexandra was a biologist about whales and wanting to operate on, I think, somewhere in British Columbia. And she found that when she was trying to observe whales, she was really disturbed because the salmon were dictating where the whales went and how healthy they were. And the salmon were not doing that well. And so she got involved in salmon activism, especially the push and pull between wild salmon preservation and farmed salmon. And so a lot of this memoir is about her fight within the system of Canada and the international landscape to get justice for salmon, right? To get them some path to go up the river safely and not be attacked by the sea lice and not be weakened by the chemicals and, caught by sport fishermen and make it up the river to spawn so that there's a catch next year, right? Sustainable harvest. I found her voice to be very compelling. She gave a little bit of her story about her love at a marine park for these whales, developing into her studies. And then her partner was a photographer and had a tragic death connected to not being able to breathe underwater, like a freak accident with the scuba equipment. And then after that, sort of finding a different place to do her research and always relying on the community to fund the research. And then finally, like, being able to liaise with Indigenous people who are also part of that sustainable harvest community, and just really, really open-minded and fierce advocate for everyone being able to participate rather than this farmed salmon lobby coming in and wrecking the delicate balance without any concern but greed. Okay, so 5-star read, not on my watch. That's all the 5-star reads. So that adds up to 20 reads plus the one I'm just about starting, Theory of Water, and really successful. I would say there's a big water focus. So, okay, removing that and putting me back here. We had the most reading done in activist author spaces. No surprise there. I'm going to read activist authors. So that was 17 of the 21 books are activist authors. What else do we have? 15 books were about hope and solutions. So that's fantastic. So if you're in the camp that thinks like, oh, gloom and doom, climate crisis, well, I've been reading lots of books that give me hope and solutions, not only for myself being in the advocacy space, but also highlighting and featuring people who are doing advocacy work that is working towards solutions and policy. So that was great. 15 books written with those. 15 books about connection. So I love how a lot of these books highlighted the community aspect, how a lot of people have different needs and we need to consider those and work together to find solutions for everybody. Think outside the box. And the way you do that is by talking it out, which is great. So connection, what else? Oh, 18. So the same as activist authors. 18 books were about revolution and change, meaning cli-fi sort of fits into that, right? So we need to modify our expectations, modify our behaviors, modify our policies. We really need to change the way we approach harvest and food and soil and policies and subsidies, right? So we need to rethink our situations in all of these in America as well as around the world. What else do I have? 18, 12. Nope, not 12. That's a 2. So 8 books from authors of different continents. So that's pretty good. 6 books about food and farming. That's okay. 2 books by Indigenous authors. So, I mean, that could be increased, right? The last one is going to be a 3rd book there. Let's see. 6 books on injustice. That tracks for my reading. 6 books in an outside setting, which is great, and has been put on the grid for next year. Spend some time uninterrupted in an outside setting. So I think that's great that we're also putting prompts on there that are not just about reading, but also about appreciating nature and like familiarizing yourself, getting off the screen. 4 books about earth, 5 books about water, so that was up from my last one, and 2 books about non-human life, focusing on it. So I probably want to increase that for next year. Yeah. So, all right. So we're going to move on to some of your answers for the question of the day, and then my answer for that, which is, what's one thing you'd like to read related to climate in 2026? And Julie said, I'm afraid I can't answer this one. Looking forward to getting some recommendations from you, Margaret, so that I hope one of these jumped out. Because again, I think mainly people think reading about climate change is like reading about projections and statistics and doom and policy, and it'll be really wonky and nerdy. But a lot of these books that I gave 4 and 5 stars to are memoirs, so you get a personal look at it, and about solutions and revolution and change. And so hopefully I'm highlighting some of that for y'all to give you a little uplift to participate in climate going forward. Erin says, the climate fantasy. Okay, so just to, if you're new, I'm going to be putting that on my list for next year. Gareth says his answer, I'm intending to get back to reading Ballard's books, and books like The Drought, The Concrete World, The Drowned World are on my radar. I think those are Ballard books, or are they a mix maybe? I'm not sure. Top of the head, top of the tip. Anyway, you know what I mean. Aaron says Marilyn Robinson. Oh, yes, and that's the other recommended book. Excellent. All right. Yeah. Let's see. So my answer to this question is, it's funny because what my computer is on right now are the cookbook stack that I brought down to do recipes from. And I just thought about that before this live stream, is that, oh, there's got to be sustainable books that are cookbooks, like cookbooks that take the lens of sustainable foods. I know I've seen cookbooks that are superfoods, so like salmon and berries and different vegetables that are really good in micronutrients that do less to harm the earth, that don't take a lot of pesticides, etc. And I'm like, there's got to be a cookbook out there that focuses on best foods for humans, how to prepare them that have least impact on the world, bad impact, you know. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to find a climate focused cookbook. Like, that would be different, right? So maybe one exists. I'm sure several exist. And if you're watching this and you know of any, pop them in the chat. That would be helpful. Okay, so Julie's got an update. So Rising by Elizabeth Rush is going to be one of her future reads. She says 2 of the Pacific Islands my dad visited during World War II are nearly underwater at this point. Wow, the Gilbert Islands and one other I can't name right now. Okay, so see the connections to ourselves if we have someone who was there and can tell us about it. And then now we know like they're going underwater like within 10 years. I think it's the Solomon Islands that are actually building a new island or evacuating. There are whole island nations that, yeah, have to confront, what do we do? This is our home. This is our culture. We can't take over another one. So, you know, what do we do with this? It's a really hard existential question for some folks. And some of that is happening in the US in places like Louisiana. the book I read with Grace, the How to Do Nothing, the like slow read along that we did together, it had a really interesting chapter. And I think I might be mixing this up with Elizabeth Rush's book, but they might have also both touched on it. There's places in right next to Silicon Valley, so kind of north of Monterey, but south of San Francisco, where there's been a lot of infill development and a lot of wetlands transformation. So I think what I remember is that they used to do salt panning, or like salt, not mining, but salt cultivation, the indigenous tribes there. And then they were obviously slowly been picked up by development and changed into like Google headquarters or Facebook headquarters. Facebook is the one I remember. And just like what you lose doing that, and then what you are putting in danger doing that, and looking forward to the disaster prep, you're kind of like, not such a great idea. Maybe we need to think in a different direction. So yeah, I just think it's all really good data, information, good reporting people are doing, good advocacy, like in the fishing industry. Um, some of it, yeah, delivered in a way that people can connect with, I think is the important part for this. So yes. Let me look at my outline to see if I missed something. All right, I have upcoming events, but let me look at my notes to see if I missed anything. I do that sometimes. I put things in different places and then I forget. Okay, all the books. Um, yeah, purpose of a readathon. Yep, covered that. My TRC playlist. Oh, I did mention it, so I'll put a card in there for the playlist later. And my 4 and 5-star recommendations. And yeah, I think that covers it. So I will have one more wrap up this year, I think next Wednesday, maybe. I won't have finished this because I think this is going to be pretty dense and I want to sit and absorb slowly, like a sponge with water. So this probably won't be wrapped up until January, but you will see those other audiobooks more in detail and notes and stuff, either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after that. So look forward to that. And I've just really enjoyed pushing all these Climathon reads on everybody all year. So for next year, I will just say that I've been emailing with Tasman, the host, and we're still figuring out how we're going to frame it. But I am definitely going to continue reading books about climate, and hope and solutions is a focus, and revolution and change is a focus. So I hope you will join me for some of those. And the way to sort of connect our rafts, I think, is just by like tagging me in the description if you review any of these, or tagging Climathon, and hopefully we'll find those and then I'll share them out so we can just get a bigger audience for your reviews. And that's basically how I do it, is I do a playlist that has that focus, and then I put other people's videos on that playlist so that we get more exposure for smaller channels. And yeah, and then I'll just like have fun, maybe buddy reading with folks. I think Rachel just offered to do a buddy read for Fresh Banana Leaves, so that's one of my hope to read this year. Didn't fit it in, so hoping to read next year. Yeah, and just have fun with it and create more community with these types of learnings and sharings and insights. That's what I'm after. Oh, the Gilbert Islands are now called Kiribati. Okay, which is why I didn't recognize them. I've heard of Kiribati. I hadn't heard of Gilbert Islands. So good correction. Hey, Deborah, fellow author on here, saying great recommendations. Thank you for popping in. I will just ask if there are any upcoming events. I was going to share 2 buddy read discussions. So next Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific, I will be talking with Tiffany from TLRS Lifestyle. We're going to be chatting about our buddy read of Walking with the Wind, which is John Lewis's memoir. And I do have that up as an event if you want to get a notification. And then the Monday after that, Monday, December 15th, I have a buddy read discussion at 5 p.m. Pacific, so a little later, and that is going to be with Rachel from RK Stumbling Bear channel. That is going to be of Legendary Fry Bread Drive-In. So that's a book that we read for Native American Heritage Month, but also just because it was going to be a good one. It's intertribal short stories, so it's a collection of lots of different authors. I listened to the audiobook, so I got lots of different narrators as well, which is super fun. It's young adult targeted or written basically, but all these stories are about an imaginary drive-in that Indigenous folks find their way to when they need it. And it's lovely because it's about community and people going through hard times, but connecting with others to get them through it. And it's just really lovely, like a little portal fantasy that a lot of different authors participated in. So it's going to be fantastic. And we really enjoyed it. So we'll talk about that Monday, December 15th. So besides those 2 buddy reads on Mondays, which I keep open for extra events, I will still have my Wednesday and Friday streams, and there'll be wrap-ups and whatever else to participate. Tags probably. We're doing lots of tag catch up this month. And then, yeah, we'll look forward to more Climathon in 2026. So if you want to be involved, let me know. If you want to do a buddy read of any of these in the new year, let me know. If you want to help me on my cookbook hunt, let me know. That could be fun. But otherwise, that is my Climathon Wrapped, like Spotify Wrapped, but we don't do Spotify. So there we go for 2025. And appreciate all you guys being here today. It's been a very busy live streaming week. People have been so generous at watching and commenting and joining in with the laughter. So thank you for that. And we're just getting underway in the holiday season. So take care of yourself and happy reading, everybody. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.